Today I have with me Louis Moskow from 315 and the Railyard Restaurant, and Louis is going to show me how to make one of my favorite recipes from 315, and that is the squash blossom beignet. So delicious. Louis, tell me about the squash blossom beignets. I know you've been making them for a few years. I think there are 3 different parts to them.
Well, we'll go through the 3 components, and just want to point out today we will be revealing the secret recipe for the squash blossoms, never done before on TV.
Oh my God, I love that. We're seeing it here first. Okay, let's make our sauce first.
Okay, well, we'll have to make 2 sauces, and then we'll have to make a batter, and then we'll fry the blossoms.
Okay.
So first we'll start with the tomato sauce, which we will start with a very hot pan. Heavy gauge is preferred so that it doesn't scorch and doesn't leave any residue on the bottom.
We got a little all-clad there. That's nice. A little plug for all-clad.
We have a little extra olive oil here, and normally I would not cook with extra olive oil, but for this particular application, I really like to use extra olive oil because we won't be getting it that hot by the time we get our vegetables in there. So there will be no time for it to smoke. So we'll start with our garlic, and I like to do the garlic first because it is a strong, assertive flavor, and the oil and the combined with the heat will release the flavors and all the oils of the garlic.
So you don't want this garlic to brown too much, just
we just want it to sweat a little bit.
Brown a little bit.
Bring out some of the flavor. And we're going to add our onions. Okay.
Shallots? Are there shallots?
These are onions, Johnny.
Onions, okay, they look like shallots. Okay, cool. Red onion or?
These are red onions.
Already cool.
Frying in the oil. So at this point, once again, I am trying to avoid bringing out any color in the garlic or the onions. This is a really, I think, the most important aspect of cooking a tomato sauce for me, because I like to cook my onions very well and develop the sugar and the sweetness in the onions by sweating them to the point where I can take one of the pieces of sauteed onions and crush it between my fingers and have it actually smush and not shoot across the room.
Oh, cool. So you've lost all structure to the onion.
We're breaking down the cellulose.
Okay, cool.
Exactly. Okay, next I'm going to add the tomato paste. I like to add the tomato paste directly to the oil because I like to fry it and develop any kind of sweetness that is in this concentration of tomatoes.
What a great idea.
It also tends to disperse it very well throughout the oil. And it actually is oil soluble, and you notice that by the oil taking on the red hue from the tomato.
I wish we had smell-o-vision on our camera because it smells so delicious.
And now we're going to add our white wine. Reason we're adding our white wine now is to cook out the alcohol from the wine. So by cooking out the alcohol of the wine, we remove the bitterness from the wine.
This is all about balance, right? You want your tomatoes to be balanced, you want your onions to be sweet, you want your wine to not be too sharp.
Well, what we're looking for exactly is a balance between fruit and acid, sweetness and acidity.
Yum.
So the way I think of it is the wine is probably somewhere around 12% alcohol. The alcohol is going to be the first thing to evaporate. So by losing 10, 15, maybe 20% of the liquid in this pan, we will have successfully evaporated all of our bitter alcohol.
Cool, the bitter alcohol.
In the fumes. And we are going to add our fresh vine-ripe tomatoes.
From the farmer's market?
From the farmer's market at this time.
Beautiful. Now you were telling me earlier that during the winter, when tomatoes aren't that great, you actually prefer to use diced canned tomatoes, and that's absolutely fine in the sauce?
I use plum tomatoes when I don't have fresh tomatoes available. Generally, this is a tomato sauce, a generic tomato sauce that can be used on anything that a tomato sauce would command, any kind of pasta or lasagna. But for this particular reason, I like to call it a fondue because we are melting the tomatoes into it.
Oh, cool.
So it's not like a long simmered marinara sauce. This is sort of just a quick melted tomato to preserve the freshness of the summer tomatoes.
Okay, Louis, let's make the goat cheese fondue. Look at that, the chef. Delicious. Okay, what do we do?
Okay, next component. Once again, heavy gauge pot, very important. I'm going to add my 1 ounce of butter.
Is that salted or unsalted?
That is unsalted.
Alrighty.
There's always salt here to add to it.
Okay.
Melting our butter And now we are going to add the shallots. Okay, I like to add my cumin while the shallots are sweating. Once again, oil-soluble spice.
And that's an interesting touch because I don't really think of cumin as being a French ingredient. Is that your own little?
It's just, I think that being in the Southwest, it has a nice Southwestern flair to it.
Cool.
Okay, our shallots have sweated successfully, and now we're going to add some heavy cream. Talk about a key instrumental ingredient in French cooking.
Absolutely.
Okay, bringing that up to a boil, and then we're going to add our goat cheese to that. Very important note that you should not boil your goat cheese once it's in there. It makes a very grainy texture, and so we're going to just melt, once again, the fondue effect of melting the goat cheese into the heavy cream.
Okay, Louis, show me the batter for the squash blossom beignets.
Okay, the final component. Also, just so you know, all of these components can be prepared in advance so that when you go to entertain and your guests come, you can just dip your blossoms in your batter and fry. Your sauces are already ready, and they'll hold well. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by adding the flour to the bowl, and then we're going to add our egg. This method that I call for making this batter is called the well method. So we're going to add our egg to the center of a well that I made for the flour.
Well, I didn't know that.
And we're going to add our soda water gradually. What I have here is a little bit more than a cup. It all sort of depends on the humidity in the current air, so that because your flour is going to take up different amounts of water
Could be dry too, yeah.
To achieve the proper consistency.
Now this is almost like a tempura batter, isn't it?
Very similar.
Oh, cool.
The leavening comes from the soda water.
Uh-huh.
So I'm whipping from the center out, pulling from the sides to avoid any lumps from forming.
And you don't want to pour it all in at once in case you don't need it all.
No, because I can mix out the lumps while the batter is thicker without overworking the gluten in the flour and making a tough batter. A tough batter will not be crispy. So I look for nice coloration, orange at the top, yellow at the bottom. I like them to be clean, so it's very important that the blossoms are clean, free of any dirt or grit. Also, you might want to check an inspection for any kind of critters that might have infiltrated. These are clean.
It adds a little crunch, but it's
okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to heat up our oil. I like to use a blended oil, a little bit of olive oil added to the vegetable oil, which will raise our smoking point. Also gives it more of a neutral flavor. I look at blossoms as sort of tasting like the zucchini, a little bit more delicate, but a little sweeter.
Those are beautiful. Okay.
So we're looking for golden brown. That is the key word here. Operative word in anything that you are frying is golden brown. So what we have here is a contrast between the creaminess of the goat cheese and the fruity and chunkiness of the tomato sauce.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. That is gorgeous.
Okay. And we have some other flowers.
Are those out of your garden?
These are nasturtiums out of my garden.
Beautiful.
Just to add a little color.
Oh my God.
In the same vein of the flowers.
And nasturtiums are edible, aren't they?
Yes. A little bit spicy. And there we have it. These are squash blossom beignets, courtesy of 315 Restaurant and Wine Bar.
And Louis Moskow. I want to thank Louis Moskow from 315 for coming and showing us these beautiful squash blossom beignets. Try them at home, or if you don't want to make them at home, make sure you go by 315 and see Louis, and he'll fix them up for you. Let's try these, Louis. They look delicious. Mmm. Yummy. Thank you so much. Delish.